I'm a Jordan fanatic. And this whole LeBron Jordan thing, to me, was never really a debate.
Okay.
I respect the man's game. He's nice despite many of the things that I've said and poking fun. I respect him. You can't not respect him. And the man is one of the best. But he ain't Jordan, B. Jordan's the GOAT, man. End the conversation. And this season right here, we can finally put a pin in that garbage.
What?
This season right here.
So we go Mr. Wizards Jordan?
But wait a minute. But hold up. Even that Jordan was doing just as well as the average player in the NBA.
Yeah, he
You know what I mean? He was still putting up 20.
Yeah, he was average 20, not gonna lie.
At 40.
And it was giving some of the premier players the business. So, you know.
Whenever someone asks me, I say, what happened with like 80s, 90s, if you notice, most of the GOATs are actually in that era. It's just the way like society was at that time. So when you think about GOATs, right, they're usually sitting in that 80s, 90s, 70s era. Jordan, what he brought to the game, style, grace, talk, he became the Bugatti.
Okay.
The just one of one. No one can reach it, period. No matter what you do, you can't reach that vehicle.
Okay, well, first let me say this. I personally have a problem with people going, there are many GOATs. No, there's only one GOAT. And then we're not handing out, you know, and I'm not saying these other players are fifth place, but everybody can't get the trophy. And whenever I get into arguments with people about GOAT, here's one of the things I hear people say, which really gets under my skin. Well, if it's about rings, then Robert Horry, he got 7. Yo, if it's about rings, then Bill Russell, he got 11. And I go, y'all don't understand what totality means? The recipe for good gumbo, AKA GOAT, you have to have it all. It's rings, it's stats, it's influence, it's pop culture, it's global phenomenon. Mike possesses a lot of things that some of those other dudes don't. Now, Bill Russell, 11 rings, to be commended. But you played in an era where you was one of 3 in the whole era. And Larry Bird himself said, basketball is a black man's game. Anytime the opposing coach put a white guy on me, it offended me. The best players are black. So if you're one black guy in an era with 3 black guys, and you're a giant amongst midgets, and with a shortened season, kill that argument. And then when people bring up Robert Horry, here's what I say. Y'all don't understand the difference between being the reason you win and winning for a reason. Robert Horry, right place, right time, 7 rings. But he wasn't the reason they won. Yes, you need role players. But when you look at guys like Magic, Michael, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, Hakeem, those are franchise. They're the reason their teams win. Robert won for a reason. So understand the difference.
I'm a Jordan fanatic. And this season right here, we can finally put a pin in that garbage. Aries Spears, Gilbert Arenas show. There are words that need no statistics to prove their truth because time itself has already spoken. This season, as the lights begin to dim on the LeBron James era, the very numbers once used to praise his immortality now reflect a colder truth. Michael Jordan never left the throne, not because LeBron is unworthy. No, he's great, in his own way. Great in endurance, great in longevity, great in refusing to fade. But Jordan, he's something else entirely. He didn't stretch greatness across decades. He compressed it into a few short years, then detonated it like an atomic blast across the sport. Aries Spears isn't an analyst, nor a statistician. He's simply a die-hard Jordan fan, and perhaps that's why his words hit harder than any chart could. I respect LeBron. The man's great. But he ain't Jordan. And this season, we can finally end that nonsense. Pause for a second. Picture Jordan at age 39 or 40, wearing a Washington Wizards jersey. The legs heavier, the lungs slower, yet still averaging 20 points a night. Still battling the league's best. Still teaching the young Lions what true willpower looks like. When everyone thought he returned just to fade out quietly, he turned his twilight into a masterclass in dignity. His opponents weren't just facing a player, they were facing the Jordan spirit itself. Even Gilbert Arenas once said, even at that age, he was still giving some of the league's best the business. He was still a nightmare for any defender. And that's what LeBron can never touch. Pure fear. LeBron earns admiration. Jordan commands reverence. This season, as the Lakers stumble, and the LeBron is GOAT argument feels like a broken tape on repeat, Aries Spears' words finally make perfect sense. Not because LeBron failed, but because Jordan already completed the story flawlessly. Jordan didn't need to run a marathon to prove endurance. He just needed 6 sprints, and the entire world had to look up. Greatness isn't measured by how long it lasts, but by how deep it cuts when it arrives. And Michael Jordan, in every jump, every stare, every drop of sweat, carved something that time itself cannot erase: eternity. Some seasons don't just end with a scoreboard, they end illusions. This is one of those seasons, the season where the NBA, the world of basketball, and even LeBron James himself must bow before the truth. The throne was never empty because Jordan never stepped off it. The problem of this era: the illusion of many goats. I have a problem when people say there are many goats. No, there's only one. Aries Spears. A short sentence, yet it lands like a hammer, striking the mindset of an entire generation. Because we now live in the era of highlights and hashtags, where everyone is told they're special, where greatness has been democratized into delusion. We've entered the age of emotional democracy, where everyone can have their own GOAT, where numbers are treated like gospel and opinions replace truth. People say things like, Kobe is my GOAT, LeBron is the GOAT of my generation, Curry is the GOAT of the three-point era. But here's the irony: when everyone has their own GOAT, no one truly is. Michael Jordan didn't rise from an age of fan bases. He rose from an age of standards. In the 1,980 seconds and 1,990 seconds, being called a legend wasn't about being famous or marketable. You had to conquer. You had to dominate. You had to break men, not algorithms. You earned your name not through followers, but through fear. That's the chasm between two worlds. Jordan's era, where every shot was a war, and honor mattered more than endorsements. LeBron's era, where every loss comes with an excuse, and legacy is written by PR teams, not by sweat and scars. Today, people say, everyone can be a GOAT in their own way. But that's not the language of greatness. That's the comfort of mediocrity. Because true greatness is lonely. Jordan didn't share the summit. He didn't need a co-pilot. He stood there alone so the world could look up and know. This is the standard, not a preference. The idea of many GOATs is just a refusal to face the truth. Jordan cannot be replicated. We celebrate LeBron, admire Kobe, and love Curry. But every comparison starts with Jordan and ends with him. Because he's not just the best in one category, he's the total equation of perfection, a balance of rings, stats, mentality, influence, and cultural immortality. Aries Spears said it perfectly: we're not handing out trophies for 5th place. Not everyone deserves a crown just for showing up. In the world of men, real men, only one sits on the throne. When society starts inventing too many legends, the real ones disappear. Jordan isn't one of many. He's the reason the word GOAT even exists. The Gumbo of Greatness. You have to have it all: rings, stats, influence, pop culture, global phenomenon. Aries Spears. This isn't just a quote. It's the true definition of greatness, and in the entire history of basketball, only one man has ever embodied it all. Michael Jeffrey Jordan. When people argue about the GOAT, most only look at one slice of the truth. Some point to championships, others to statistics, and still others to longevity. But greatness, like the gumbo in Southern American culture that Aries Spears referenced, cannot be made from a single ingredient. It requires every flavor blended perfectly: spice, depth, soul, and texture, all balanced in one unforgettable dish. And Jordan is that perfect gumbo. He won 6 championships and never lost in the finals. He didn't just win. He devoured an entire era. No Game 7 seconds. No lucky breaks. No super teams. Every championship was a statement of finality. LeBron may rack up thousands of wins, but Jordan had 6 flawless seasons, each one ending exactly as he declared it would. That's the difference between a great player and a man who forces history to rewrite itself around him. As for numbers, many players can score 30 points a game, but when Jordan scored 30, it shifted the air of the entire league. Every fadeaway was a masterclass in technique. Every dunk was a declaration of human will. His stats weren't just data, they were doctrine. He didn't just score points. He redefined what scoring meant. When Jordan stepped on the floor, defenders weren't facing a man, they were facing truth itself. But what truly separates Jordan from everyone else is his influence. He didn't just transform the NBA, he transformed the world. He made an entire generation believe that surpassing limits was real. He made kids from Chicago to Shanghai, from Paris to Lagos, believe that passion could lift them to the sky. Before Jordan, basketball was a sport. After Jordan, it became a global language. And Air Jordan? It wasn't just a shoe. It was a manifesto of ambition. When someone laced up a pair of Jordan one second, They didn't just want to play basketball, they wanted to touch the spirit of a king. The Jumpman logo didn't need a name, one silhouette was enough, and the world knew exactly who it was. Jordan didn't follow pop culture, he became pop culture. Beyond fame, he became a planetary phenomenon. He was the ambassador of excellence. Proof that the American spirit, competition, discipline, relentlessness, could reach every corner of the earth. No one has ever made the world say one name in unison like he did. No one has ever made kids in Africa, Asia, and Europe rise up together shouting, "Like Mike," not because of commercials, but because they truly believed. If I work like Jordan, I can become anything. Michael Jordan is the perfect recipe of the gumbo of greatness, the spice of passion, the salt of pain, the aroma of discipline, and the heat of an unbreakable will. No one before or after him has ever blended those ingredients without losing the original flavor. LeBron may play longer, win more games, even break more records, but the song called Jordan was written only once in human history. Greatness isn't when you do everything well. Greatness is when everything becomes better simply because you exist. Jordan never had to call himself the GOAT. The world did it for him. The era and the environment when greatness appears at the perfect moment. If you notice, most of the GOATs are from that 80 seconds, 90 seconds era. Gilbert Arenas. It's no coincidence that most of basketball's immortal legends, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kobe Bryant, the heir to that spirit. And at the summit, Michael Jordan all emerged from the 1,980 seconds. 1,990 seconds. Because that era wasn't just a period of sport, it was an age of character. The NBA back then wasn't an entertainment stage. It was a battlefield. It was where men grew up through blood, sweat, and respect. There was no load management, no super teams, no social media to build an image or spin excuses for every failure. You either won with your own hands, or you disappeared from memory. Jordan was forged in that fire, an era where everything was real. The hits were real, the pain was real, and pride was sacred. In the 80 seconds and 90 seconds, you couldn't say, "I'm tired," or "I need help," or "I want to team up with another star." You had to become the star yourself, and it was within that merciless crucible that true legends were born. Jordan didn't just survive that environment, he ruled it. He entered a league of giants and made them bow. Before him came Bird and Magic, the men who revived the NBA and brought it to the light. But after them came Jordan, and he made the NBA explode into a global phenomenon. He didn't merely exist within a golden era, he became the center of it. That period had no protective rules, no hand-check bans to safeguards, no flagrant fouls to shield players from mid-air collisions. Every jumper, every dunk, every drive came at a physical cost, bruises, blood, and genuine pain. But Jordan never flinched. He took violence and turned it into motivation. He turned pain into fuel for perfection. Today, players can reach the top without bleeding. They can be worshipped through highlights, hashtags, and marketing campaigns. But in Jordan's era, greatness couldn't be faked. You had to live it, fight for it, and win it for real. That's why Jordan was the perfect fusion of talent and timing. He was born at the precise moment when basketball needed a savior and the world needed a symbol to believe in. If Jordan were born today, he would still be great. But if LeBron were born in Jordan's time, he might survive yet not necessarily become a symbol. That brutal, disciplined, unforgiving era was the forge that created a Jordan who can never be replicated. Every fall, every punch, every insult from an opponent became steel in his veins. No one handed him the title of the GOAT. He seized it by defeating every generation in front of him. Looking back now, we see how right Gilbert Arenas was. True legends don't come from easy times. They emerge from the hardest, most ruthless, most authentic moments in history. Jordan was a product of a world where men didn't seek comfort, they sought respect. Today's players are protected from injuries, from criticism, even from the truth. Jordan, on the other hand, was forged by those very things. And that's why, when he rose to the top, the entire world had to admit, not every era creates legends, but there are legends so great that their era must be named after them. The era and the environment when greatness appears at the perfect moment. If you notice, most of the GOATs are from that 80 seconds, 90 seconds era. Gilbert Arenas. It's no coincidence that most of basketball's immortal legends, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kobe Bryant, the heir to that spirit, and at the summit, Michael Jordan all emerged from the 1,980 seconds. 1,990 seconds. Because that era wasn't just a period of sport, it was an age of character. The NBA back then wasn't an entertainment stage. It was a battlefield, It was where men grew up through blood, sweat, and respect. There was no load management, no super teams, no social media to build an image or spin excuses for every failure. You either won with your own hands, or you disappeared from memory. Jordan was forged in that fire, an era where everything was real. The hits were real, the pain was real, and pride was sacred. In the 80 seconds and 90 seconds, you couldn't say, "I'm tired," or "I need help," or "I want to team up with another star." You had to become the star yourself, and it was within that merciless crucible that true legends were born. Jordan didn't just survive that environment, he ruled it. He entered a league of giants and made them bow. Before him came Bird and Magic, the men who revived the NBA and brought it to the light. But after them came Jordan, and he made the NBA explode into a global phenomenon. He didn't merely exist within a golden era, he became the center of it. That period had no protective rules, no handcheck bans to save guards, no flagrant fouls to shield players from mid-air collisions. Every jumper, every dunk, every drive came at a physical cost, bruises, blood, and genuine pain. But Jordan never flinched. He took violence and turned it into motivation. He turned pain into fuel for perfection. Today, players can reach the top without bleeding. They can be worshipped through highlights, hashtags, and marketing campaigns. But in Jordan's era, greatness couldn't be faked. You had to live it, fight for it, and win it for real. That's why Jordan was the perfect fusion of talent and timing. He was born at the precise moment when basketball needed a savior and the world needed a symbol to believe in. If Jordan were born today, he would still be great. But if LeBron were born in Jordan's time, he might survive yet not necessarily become a symbol. That brutal, disciplined, unforgiving era was the forge that created a Jordan who can never be replicated. Every fall, every punch, every insult from an opponent became steel in his veins. No one handed him the title of the GOAT. He seized it by defeating every generation in front of him. Looking back now, we see how right Gilbert Arenas was. True legends don't come from easy times. They emerge from the hardest, most ruthless, most authentic moments in history. Jordan was a product of a world where men didn't seek comfort, they sought respect. Today's players are protected from injuries, from criticism, even from the truth. Jordan, on the other hand, was forged by those very things. And that's why, when he rose to the top, the entire world had to admit, not every era creates legends, but there are legends so great that their era must be named after them. A legend is not defined by victory alone. You need to understand the difference between being the reason you win and winning for a reason. Aries Spears. In every era, there are champions. But not every champion becomes a legend. Because winning alone has never been the full story of greatness. When people try to challenge Jordan's supremacy, they often throw out the same tired arguments. Bill Russell has 11 rings. Robert Horry has 7, as if jewelry were the currency of immortality. But rings are just symbols, they don't tell you who made them possible. Bill Russell's greatness was real, yes. He dominated an era. But that era was small, just a handful of teams, a limited talent pool, and rules that barely resembled the modern game. Even Larry Bird once admitted, "Basketball is a black man's game." Russell was a giant among men, but among fewer men. He was great in a time when the sport itself was still being built. Robert Horry? A brilliant role player, a clutch shooter. But as Aries Spears said, he won for a reason. Not was the reason his teams won. He was there at the right time, in the right place, alongside giants. Every dynasty needs its supporting cast. But when the credits roll, the audience remembers the star. Jordan was different. He was the reason the Chicago Bulls became the Chicago Bulls. He didn't ride a wave, he created it. He wasn't part of a dynasty, he was the dynasty. Every championship he won was not the product of circumstance, but of transcendence. He didn't just perform within the system, he became the system. He redefined what franchise player truly meant. When Jordan played, the Bulls weren't just a team, they were a testament to one man's refusal to lose. That's what separates those who win with help from those who make others win because of them. Robert Horry was a key piece. Bill Russell was a pioneer. But Michael Jordan? He was the engine, the heartbeat, and the standard of competitive fire. He was the line that divided good enough from untouchable. Even his losses had weight, they forged the myth. Because Jordan didn't hide from defeat, he studied it, bled for it, and turned it into fuel. Every time he lost, he came back sharper, meaner, and more inevitable. When he finally reached the mountaintop, he didn't just stay there, he built a fortress no one else could enter. That's why his legacy isn't about how many times he won, but how completely he conquered. It's not about the ring count, it's about the meaning of those rings. 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 6 moments where the world held its breath, and every single time, he delivered. Bill Russell symbolizes victory. Robert Horry represents luck and timing. But Michael Jordan, he represents inevitability. He didn't just win games, he altered history. He made the world understand that victory isn't an accident, it's an extension of purpose. Being the reason you win, that's what immortality sounds like. And Jordan didn't just achieve it. He made it the standard every other player would forever chase, but never reach. Jordan, the machine of pressure and perfection. Some players inspire their teammates, others terrify them into greatness. Michael Jordan did both, and that's what made him more than just a leader. He was a force of nature, a psychological machine built entirely out of pressure, pride, and purpose. Jordan didn't need to talk about accountability. He was accountability. His very presence in practice raised the temperature of the room. Every drill, every scrimmage, every possession became a trial, and the only acceptable verdict was excellence. For most players, practice was preparation. For Jordan, practice was judgment day. There's a difference between being a motivator and being an intimidator. LeBron James motivates, he encourages. He builds confidence. He connects emotionally with his teammates. Jordan, on the other hand, intimidated people into becoming their best selves. He wasn't always kind. He wasn't meant to be. He wasn't trying to make friends, he was trying to make winners. Craig Hodges, Steve Kerr, Scott Burrell, they've all said it in different ways. Playing with Jordan felt like living under divine scrutiny. Every mistake was magnified. Every weakness exposed. But when you survived it, when you earned even a nod from him, it meant something sacred, you had been refined by fire. Where most men fear pressure, Jordan craved it. He hunted it. He became it. Pressure didn't make him nervous, it made him feel alive. When the score was tied and the clock ticking down, other players felt their hearts race. Jordan's heartbeat slowed. That was his gift, not just talent, but control under chaos. While others drowned in the moment, he breathed underwater. That's why his teammates both loved and feared him, because Jordan didn't just demand excellence, he embodied it. He showed you what perfection looked like and dared you to catch it. And if you couldn't, he'd drag you there, kicking and screaming. It wasn't cruelty. It was conviction. To Jordan, greatness wasn't optional, it was a moral duty. He believed that every man given the opportunity to play beside him carried a sacred responsibility to rise. That's why his leadership sometimes broke people. Because he didn't speak to your comfort, he spoke to your potential. He didn't lead by words. He led by presence. His silence in the locker room spoke louder than any speech. His glare was a sermon. His expectations were a law. And here lies the divine paradox of Jordan. He pushed people to the edge of breaking, and in doing so, he pulled them toward immortality. Many players achieve success through teamwork. Jordan achieved it through transformation. He turned average men into believers, then believers into champions. That's the difference between being great and being legendary. Great players lead by charisma. Legends lead by consequence. Jordan was consequence personified, the walking embodiment of, if you can't take the heat, you don't belong here. Kobe understood it. He called it the standard. He once said, when you play against or alongside Jordan, you either grow or you disappear. LeBron's leadership builds unity. Jordan's leadership built dynasties, because every man who played beside him, even those who hated him, left with the same revelation. He didn't just make us better players, he made us tougher human beings. That's what made Michael Jordan the machine of pressure and perfection. He didn't just perform under weight, he was the weight that shaped everyone else. The last flight from wizards to eternity. There's a moment in every legend's life when the body begins to fade but the soul burns brighter. For Michael Jordan, that moment came in a Wizards jersey. To the casual fan, those years looked like the epilogue to a finished story. To those who understood greatness, they were the final chapter of his gospel. At nearly 40, with knees that groaned and lungs that betrayed him, Jordan still averaged 20 points a game. But those numbers weren't what mattered. What mattered was that he was still the standard, even when stripped of youth, even when surrounded by mediocrity, even when the world had moved on. He wasn't playing for records anymore. He was teaching, showing a new generation what pride looks like when the spotlight dims. The Wizards' years weren't about dominance. They were about dignity. They were proof that even as time erodes the body, it cannot touch the will. Because Jordan's game, even in its decline, carried something LeBron's longevity never could. The quiet authority of a man who had already conquered everything, yet still demanded more from himself. When Jordan laced up at 40, he wasn't chasing ghosts, he was reminding them who he was. He didn't have to be the best player anymore. He simply had to exist on the floor, and instantly, the atmosphere changed. Defenders still braced themselves. Crowds still leaned forward. Even in decline, he was the shadow that owned the room. That's why comparing him to LeBron feels wrong. LeBron is still chasing records, chasing years, chasing relevance. Jordan was never chasing anything. He was the thing everyone else chased. When he returned with the Wizards, he wasn't trying to prove he could still fly. He was proving that even when you fall, your presence still commands the sky. Because greatness, real greatness, doesn't fade with time. It evolves. It deepens. It becomes legend. Michael Jordan was not just a player. He was a mirror reflecting what humanity could be at its absolute limit. He was the embodiment of demand, the demand for excellence, for sacrifice, for the relentless pursuit of mastery. And that's why his story never really ended. When the shoes came off, the myth only grew. He was not adored because he was perfect. He was adored because he made perfection look humanly possible. Because every kid who watched him from the asphalt courts of Chicago to the narrow alleys of Manila saw not just a man jumping, but a man defying gravity itself. He showed the world what it means to take pain, pressure, fear, and doubt and turn them into art. LeBron's greatness lies in endurance. Jordan's greatness lies in immortality. One stretches time, the other transcends it. And that's why this debate, this endless comparison, will always end where it began, with one name whispered across generations, like a sacred truth that refuses to die. Michael Jordan. He was the storm and the calm, the flame and the aftermath, the perfection that never apologized for being too much. And as the world continues to search for the next him, it must finally accept what Aries Spears said with simple, unshakable clarity. We can finally put a pin in that garbage, because when the lights go out, and the echoes of every era fade into silence, there will still be one silhouette frozen midair, knees bent, tongue out, defying gravity, the eternal symbol of what humanity looks like when it dares to be divine. He wasn't just the greatest of all time. He was the reason time had to measure greatness at all.